Tower Call, the podcast that delves into all things TV, live theater, and film, basically anything entertainment. Our guest on this episode is an award-winning writer and actor, a proud SAG and AFTRA member, and a celebrated storyteller. With 2 Star News Awards, 3 Failing Awards, and accolades spanning international film festivals and top screenplay competitions, he brings passion for compelling narratives to paper and screen. From the romantic nostalgia of his 2022 film, Remember Yesterday, to the drama of his current project, Never Break the Chain, his work captivates audiences and industry professionals alike. He isn't just about the big screen. His screenplays like Prophets, about tackling human trafficking in Wilmington, North Carolina, and A New York Christmas Story, a modern twist on Dickensian redemption, showcases versatility. And if TV's your thing, his pilots, Lynx, Front Street, and ILM Transport prove there's no shortage of drama, suspense, and his sense of humor from his repertoire. Please welcome J.R. Rodriguez. J.R., thanks for joining us.
Hey, man, thanks. That introduction was great. It's exhausting, isn't it?
Hey, you get the credit where credit is due.
Right.
So let me start you off.
Somebody out there smoking pot.
Let me start you off the way I'm starting off all my guests. Go back. What made you want to be an entertainer?
Entertainer. I was a matador in my preschool play when I was like 5 years old, and I got laughs. I thought that was kind of cool. What made me want to be an actor is Gene Hackman in Young Frankenstein, The Blind Hermit.
Okay.
Yeah, it's. I'm like, see, that's the kind of guy. I'm not a pretty guy, and neither's Gene Hackman. But I thought to myself, that's the kind of actor I want to be right there.
I believe it. I had a friend of mine one time say to me, "What is it being here? If you ever could be on a deserted island with only the movies of one actor, who would it be?" And I've always said Gene Hackman.
Oh, come on! I mean,
you got everything then.
The whole world is there, man.
Right.
You know, from the guest spots on the streets of San Francisco and Ironside, all the way up to
right
Unforgiven and Popeye Doyle, and
right. Covers everything.
Incredible stuff.
Right. So you get a variety there. You're definitely not getting Tom Cruise in the same thing. Oh.
And everything.
Nothing against Tom. He's doing great.
He's got a shot.
He's gonna be okay.
He's got a shot. He's gonna be okay. You just get the right thing for him, he'll be all right.
He'll just skyrocket, I'm sure. Okay, so how did you get started in film? Let me put it this way: is your base always been film, or did you start in theater? Or
no, I started in theater.
Okay,
and I think I think that's probably why I'm drawn to the British work ethic, is because they all start on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
Louis Criscola told me a long time ago, he's like, there is a difference between an actor and a movie star.
Right.
And most Americans that are getting into the business, and I would say most, even if they do start on stage, they want to be movie stars.
Right.
Being an actor there's a fine line. You know, you can read a bunch of lines, it's great. But at the end of the day, if you're not putting yourself in that situation, if you're not putting yourself in that experience, this is just not going to work.
Right.
And it's not believable.
So when you started writing, did you start writing as a theater, like writing plays, or did that come later on?
You know, Troy Rudisell and I, we almost started a company years ago, and it was going to be because we worked for the same company. He got me a gig at a place called Hampstead Players in New Hampshire, and I got drunk and flipped a car and got fired. But we were going to start something similar, and I had written a couple of two-man history pieces.
Okay.
I wrote one, a spinoff of 1776, a spinoff of Scrooge. That was the first Scrooge I wrote. And I did a Ford one because I thought Henry Ford was such an interesting person in history. And that's what these were geared to. They were geared to students. We were going to, tour schools. And it never really panned out because I was lazy and I was a drunk. But the way I started writing screenplays, I wrote my first produced screenplay. Peggy Taphorn decided to put me in her production of Cats at Temple Theater.
Okay.
And she wanted me to play Gus and Busterford Jones. I didn't have anything to do.
Right.
I mean, literally, I went up there, learned my two numbers, and I'm sitting in the theater watching all these gorgeous 20-somethings do this stuff. And I'm like, and all of a sudden I started hearing these buzzes that my boyfriend this, my girlfriend that. Half the cast was from New York, half the cast was from North Carolina. And I'm like, I wonder if I could apply that to people my age. And so that's how I wrote Remember Yesterday.
Okay.
And Remember Yesterday took 8 years to get up and running. But it is like Owner Turkel, who was here for a while, and he's in New York, and everybody loves him. He's a huge indie filmmaker. We were talking about 2 years ago, he's like, it's like a drug. Right. He's like, I'm filming my next one on an iPhone just because I have to do it. And it's the truth. It's the truth. So that's why I kept writing.
So you mentioned Remember Yesterday, and that was your first produced film. Why was it so important that be your first? I know we've known each other a long time. I know you got a bunch of scripts laying around that you're playing. Why is that?
I wish they weren't. Why Remember Yesterday? It's the thing I learned about John Steinbeck is that if you read any of Steinbeck, you know that he put himself in every piece. When I moved back to North Carolina, and even today, I feel out of place. I don't know that I have a spot. This is like this is where I fit in. And so I wanted to tell a little bit of my story. So Remember Yesterday is about what I envision second chances to be, whether it's love, whether it's, in the arts, whether it's society, however. And that's what the story is about. And, all I wanted more than anything was a second chance because I had quit drinking. And I realized how much of an ass I had been. And I wanted to treat people kinder, and I wanted to open myself up to more experiences. I think at one point we stopped being curious. I wanted to go back to being curious again, because I think you learn more when you're curious.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this, because I actually went back last night and I was watching it again. Wilmington plays. It's the setting, but it's almost a character in that movie. I mean, it really is. Yeah. Why that choice? Why there? Is it just a love letter to your hometown, or?
The fascinating thing that there are a lot of popular movies and television shows out there that take place in Tree Hill or take place in some creek place or some Los Angeles suburb or whatever. They were filmed here.
Right.
I wanted to film something, and I wanted to call it Wilmington.
Right.
I'm very proud of my hometown. I'm proud of the arts community that we've built here. We're getting there now, but when I was coming up, we were not a big town. We were a small town.
Right.
You know, when I first moved here in 1976, we were a town of 45,000 people.
Right.
And you look at where we've grown, just in my world, in the arts world, where I think we've completely changed the landscape of a lot of preconceived notions of what the arts should be. Get up, say your line, don't run into the furniture, and get off stage.
Right.
We don't do that here.
Right.
You know, here it is. There's a quality of work that you're not supposed to have in a town like this.
Right.
And I think it comes from, first of all, I think it comes from the big five, you know, Tony, Lou, Sam, Doug, and Don. And we can talk about them if you want. But then it came to us as the performers, and you and I have known each other forever. Mm-hmm. We did things different. Mm-hmm. You know, it wasn't, let's get comfortable. I mean, we had egos. We all had egos. But we also knew that we had to look in the mirror before we walked on stage, knowing full well that these people are here,
right,
to be entertained. And we have a responsibility to them.
Right.
And we took that responsibility very seriously.
I agree. I mean, it's one of the reasons why when we first moved there, you know, we got involved with all different aspects of the theaters and stuff. And both Susie and I recognized there's a lot of talent in that town, And it took us a little bit, but we finally realized there was a gap in that whole scene. And that's when we started the Children's Theater Company.
Right.
Because nobody was doing that there. And I toured with that kind of stuff for 5 years back in New York before I moved to Wilmington. So we were like, hey, this is something that we can maybe fill in this hole here because nobody's doing this here. And that's how that started. And luckily, people accepted it pretty quickly.
I know I loved it.
You know,
I loved Pinocchio. I had a great time playing Pinocchio. It was great.
It was a good show. You know, they were all good shows. They're all from, you know, Prince Street Players stuff that was just, I mean, this Prince Street Players Cinderella is still running today. And it was written in 1967,
right.
You know, and it's still running yearly as a tradition. But yeah, so let's go back to the Big Five. As somebody who was born there, I'm sure they had a bigger influence on you than they would on me. And I don't mean that in a bad way that they didn't have a great influence on me. It was just different, I'm sure.
It was different. I mean, you look at where they came from, mm-hmm. right? I mean, it's Doug Swink, you know, UNCW, he was told to create a theater department.
Right.
Do it. And just do it. Just do it. He doesn't give it any guidelines. Just do it.
Right.
Chris Gola was up the street. They brought him in to direct Man of La Mancha for a fundraiser, and then they brought him in to do a fundraiser at Thalian Hall. He loved the place. He stayed.
Right.
Ravenbark was hired. Ravenbark to me is the greatest success story. Ravenbark was hired to show a movie on Mondays in Sweep at Thalian Hall. That's all he was told to do, right? And now you have actors and musicians and artists and everything falling over themselves to get in that building that Tony Ravenbark built, right? Don Ansel, you know, he had a store and he had real estate and this, that, and the other, but he wanted to get back into the arts after moving here from New Jersey. And he had the radio station, but he went over and started working with the association, and he created this thing called an artistic director.
Right.
When he was tired of it, he walked away, handpicked his successor, who was Sam Garner. And so that was, I mean, that's the simplified version of it. But those five guys, if you were here in the the late 80s, 90s, and 2000s, those guys, you walked in their shadow.
Oh yeah.
And to me, the younger folks, they don't. I mean, oh yeah, I heard that he was a great person, and that stings me a little bit because this is not going to do their history. There's more to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, I refer to Don Ansel as I've always referred to him as an arts entrepreneur. He would just, he woke up one day and went, "I think I'll start a theater company." Oh, I woke up one day. Oh, well, I think I'll, host a radio show today. But then got it going. But it went well. It always went well, and then
Always went well.
moved on. And I know a couple of other people in business like that as well. It's just like it's that entrepreneurial spirit of, I like this idea. I want to get it going. Then I'm going to walk away because that's all I want to do is just make things happen and pop them up here. And I've always, if anybody's asked me about, my classes and things like that, I've had people talk about who are some of the best at being business in the arts. I would always mention, you can look up this guy named Don Ansel because he really knew his stuff.
He really was a wizard. And me being that lover of the Renaissance, they all had that Renaissance feel about them. Different characters from the Renaissance.
Right.
And it's around 96 to about 2008 or 9. I mean, that was a magical time, man. We were some bad dudes, Jack.
Yeah.
And you had to compete with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, I probably should keep this to myself, but I've never been one to be able to do that. Now you have to go be seen at all the different theaters. Back then, you wanted to go to all the theaters, see what the heck was going on,
Right. Right. It just, and they had, in the time that we lived there were so many people looking for opportunities to perform and looking opportunities to create different things.
Yeah.
It's all, when I was there, it was all pre, internet, no podcasts, that kind of thing. There was none of that kind of thing. So it was go down to the art center or go down to the Scheffler Center, see what's happening, see who's around. And just start talking to somebody and make something happen,
And then you look at the offshoots from that, there's you and Susie. There's Big Dog. There was Bump. There was Tapestry. There were all these offshoots from these 5 guys.
Right.
Whether the artistic directors of those companies want to give those guys the credit or not is irrelevant.
Right.
I mean, but that's where they came from.
Right. No, and everybody created into it. I was actually in Big Dog's first show. I was an actor in that first show they did.
Really?
A show called Onion Park.
Onion Park. I remember it.
Was it John Marcus's wife, Linda?
Linda.
At Tony Ridenbach's funeral, I said, "Yeah, I remember we did this," and she goes, "I could have gone all day without you mentioning that show."
That's awesome. I like that. That's
but good. Yeah, I mean, but again, and then all those folks did our shows as well. I mean, we did Two Peas in a Pod for 4 years, and we never held auditions. We just and we were plain about that too, from the get-go, that we were just going to ask people, "Hey, do you want to be in this?" And if they said no, they said no. I had enough confidence in our ability to produce that I was like, it's just a waste of a day for me. I know who I want,
Right.
So, but all right. So let me talk about some of their influencing you in film as well, because I know Lou did quite a bit of stuff down there. Everybody, all of them did. I mean, I came just after what I call the heyday of Carolco Studios and what's his name? Not DiCaprio. He was
Frank Capra.
Capra, yeah. No, the other guy. The other
Frank Capra Jr.?
No, the other guy. Dino De Laurentiis.
Oh, Dino, yeah.
His day, where when all of the carpenters who were working at the studio, they didn't have a movie, so they were all working on his cabinets in his kitchen.
Right. That's right, because Frank Capra was Screen Gems. That's right.
Right.
Um,
So I came after that kind of thing right as Capra took over. So with Screen Gems, and then of course North Carolina screwed up the whole thing in as a state with taxing and all the other political crap that they pulled,
yeah.
and kind of drove everybody out of town. But we won't get
I
into
still don't
that.
think Steven Schwartz has been back.
But again, I know all of them worked in film. Did you get to work with any of them on a film or anything like that? Or
Yeah, I worked with Louis on the first season of Bolden. We call it that because Dan Pritzker filmed it 4 times, filmed the entire movie. This is what having a trust fund gets you. I mean, this guy's one of the richest guys in America. He filmed the same movie 4 times. And Lou and I worked on season 1. And we literally, we were literally on set 20 minutes. And we spent a week out at Screen Gems. We were out there a week. We sat around in a circle. Michael Rooker, the great actor Michael Rooker, he didn't know what the hell we were doing. He thought we were like technicians. Because all we did was sit around all day. There were like 12 of us. All we did was talk about wasting in movies. That was a waste of money.
Yeah.
But Pritzker had it, and we didn't care. And so Rucker would come over, and he would drink Jack Daniels with us. Because by the time 7 o'clock rolled around, we were half in the bag. I mean,
Right.
we didn't care anymore. You know, we knew we weren't working that day, although we were called.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was just an extra in to Jillian on her 37th birthday, and I spent a week sitting on the beach. And I remember it was 300 extras on that, and they paid us all in cash at the end of the week. And 2 weeks later, I got a check in the mail, and I was like, what's this? So I called up the company. I was trying to be nice. I was like, yeah, you paid everybody in cash, and I just got a check for doing this extra gig. The woman on the, she goes, I had a voucher, I paid it. I was like, well, great. Hang up the phone, went and cash a check.
Absolutely. Just keep running. Just
But I
keep
was
running.
like, in my head, I'm going, they did that to 300 people. No wonder movie tickets are so expensive.
It's getting worse. You're like Tom Cruise motorcycles off another edge, off another cliff. We're
Right.
going to go up another $10.
Right, exactly. So were you working as an actor more primarily then, or were you starting to write back then as well, or just mainly just
I started writing. I wrote my first screenplay, and it was just dreadful. I wrote it in summer stock theater at Pioneer Playhouse in Kentucky. I was up there with Evan Maston. If you are a young actor and you have an opportunity to do summer stock, do it if for nothing else, the sex. But I wrote my first, it was a mob thing, and Lou read it. He's like, wow, this is awful. And he was right. It was terrible. But I wanted to keep writing. So I would write a journal. I think journaling is really important. Even if you don't want to be a writer, as anybody, but certainly as some type of artist, even a technician, an actor, a director, I think journaling is important to get your day out of your head, right? Whatever your day is, move that away, because tomorrow starts fresh. And so when Peggy called me in to do Cats, I felt comfortable enough writing something, right? And so it started snowballing. I remember our stage manager, Michelle White, she looked at me, she's like, what are you doing? This is like the 3rd day in a row. She said, what are you doing? I said, I'm writing a movie. And she said, oh, okay. And the cast was very supportive.
Mhm.
I mean, we sat around and I think we had 2 read-throughs of it
Okay.
on their day off. And then I sat on it for about a year and a half, and then I put something on Facebook, which I don't do anymore because Facebook is poison.
Mhm.
But Marty Landau got hold of it, and she asked if I could read it. And it was ridiculous. She said, I want my husband to read it. And Jonathan Landau is a producer and a director. He's very successful with his last horror film has been very successful, The Devil's Stomping Ground. I'm very proud of him. But when I gave it to him, it had 265 pages. He's like, this is going to have to be cut a lot. And so I took it down. We ended up shooting 74 pages. And the only reason every actor in it is, I know the director was horrible. I directed it. But the thing that really got it made was Jana Allen.
Okay.
Once Jana signed on to it, and Ryan Risley agreed to cut it, we had a movie.
Okay.
We had a movie. And it's got Jana is one of the most natural actors I've ever seen.
Okay.
And the script is not great, and she made something out of it, as did Adrian. But Jana was the pivot point. Lou always said, "Find a pivot point." Jana was the pivot point for Remember Yesterday.
All right, everyone. That's it for this first part of this interview with J.R. Rodriguez. If you like what you're hearing, please join us again next week for the finale of this episode with our guest, J.R. And if you like what you hear in general, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Keep the faith.
Places, please. This is Places.